he just waiting there?
Not your average ice cream man. Stephen King's novel, and the design of the character, I think, is just so wonderful that he works in the local electric store, a really basic, nothing fancy, and he's a good employee, not to draw attention to himself, but he's not anything special. And then he works on an ice cream truck. He's charismatic, kids love him. That's his idea of hiding in plain sight, he calls it. It's like, if I'm going to be a psychopath, and I'm going to be in the local area, then who would be the least likely person to be the psycho? Probably the dude selling ice creams. So, although maybe not. But anyway, that's his goal. That's his tack. And for me, it was so fun to be between the different headspaces of Brady. He has a character as the ice cream man, he has a character as the working in the electric store, and he has a character which is him, which is also, a character with his mum, and also what he is when he's by himself in the basement and getting up to no good. And they're all so sort of different that it felt like playing different people almost. And that's kind of a hallmark of like when you read about psychopaths or sociopaths, is often they create characters for themselves, and also often have a superficial charm. They're often like very good with people, have good personal skills. They're not the person that is weird and strange, and often there's a confidence to someone who's psychopathic because they have to believe that they could go out and end someone's life and get away with it. I mean, it takes quite a kind of bold person to do that. So, I don't know. It was a fascinating headspace to look into. I read a lot about psychology and psychopathy and sociopaths and children who kill. It was a very dark kind of weird research month or two beforehand when you're reading about all this stuff, watching documentaries. And then it all comes back. Stephen King's amazing at tapping into what is going to scare people, and right now he's tapping into someone who lives in your cul-de-sac, in your down your street, who might just want to run a car into you, or might just want to blow something up. And you sort of think about that. We hear a lot about that in certain elements on the news. But I was filming in Charleston where Dylan Roof did the same thing a year before, and I was like, oh my god, he's an absolute Brady. He's the most horrific, disturbing psychology that you could ever think about, that someone would want to do that, and it was true. So the fact that this is a novel and this is supposed to be fantasy, when you stop and think about what goes on, that's not necessarily we talk about a lot, but there is awful pockets of violence with guns, or with in different ways across country. So there's a few Bradys lurking out there, and it was a disturbing sort of education to look into that, but also, all of that said, it makes it sound very dark. There is a kind of there's a dark humour to him as a character. There's a pleasure that you get from watching someone be so secretive with other people, so that he'll be charming with someone, and then what he's thinking. There's a kind of there's a dark humour to some of it, basically, and that's in the novel, which Stephen wrote so well. It's delicious in a dark kind of way, do you know what I mean? It's like, you kind of, that's what I got from reading the book anyway. It's sort of like, no, he couldn't be doing that. This is the worst thing imaginable, but oh my god, it's kind of gripping when you're inside the mind of someone so horrific. There's something weirdly entertaining about it. Because it's pure what you would never want to be, so it's interesting.
In your head you read something, you have your own idea about what it's going to be, and it so often becomes something else, and sometimes that's okay or better, and in this case it was exactly the organic feeling I had about, I'm a huge Stephen King freak. I read the books, and I was like, and then I got the chance to play Deb Hartsfield, and it was like, it's for me one of the best characters ever written, and you have your vision of it, and as the pieces fell into place. In fact, the first day I worked with Harry, we had a very weird, twisted scene, and afterwards I said, take this for, I hope it doesn't sound weird, but it was so easy to work with you. Like, this feels weirdly organic, is it just me? And he was like, no, like, yes, and we just had fun the whole time, and it felt...
Probably kind of rare to come across something like that, right?
Well, especially when you're playing a mother and son who have an incestuous relationship, which I have a daughter around Harry's age. And I just said when I got the part, I thought, I'm really glad I have a girl and not a boy. Any little thing you can do, anything like piece to help you kind of find their way there. But it just became, I started to understand the two of them together, how they're surviving together, and also how a parent doesn't see the clues of that, like evil in their children, and I've seen it before where someone's child has been caught for murder or something where it's like, this kid absolutely did this thing, and you see the parents going, that's not my son. Yeah. That's not my son.
Just don't want to face it.
Yeah,
Reality.
there is that crazy bond of it's not possible because I love this person's not that person.
Well, his name is Jerome Robinson, which is hilarious because my name is Jharrel Jerome. Right? To think Stephen King created that character before I even, had that in mind was pretty cool. His name is Jerome Robinson. He is the youngest out of the whole crew. He's also black, young and black, and he completely is the anti-stereotype for what America puts on young black men, and that is he's intelligent and he's going to Harvard, and he isn't afraid of anything, and he doesn't scare people. He's a very smart kid, he's very wise, and when you look at him with a lot of poise and dignity, and so it was fun playing a character who can defy that sort of stereotype. I can go from playing a role like Kevin in Moonlight, which some people would like to say it's a stereotypical role, which I disagree. He's a very conflicted character, but to go from a character like that all the way to a whole different character that you would have never expect. Jerome is so smart, and that's the best thing I can say about him. At the same time, he is naive. He's one of those characters who doesn't know much about what's going on, but wants to know everything, and he'll take his time to learn everything. Throughout the season, he just keeps getting deeper and deeper into this game that the killer's playing, and he's not even aware of it sometimes. Yet he doesn't give up. Yet he's not saying, all right, I'm done, I'm too scared. He goes for it. And he becomes sort of Hodges' sidekick, like his right-hand man. Hodges doesn't know a lot of IT things and doesn't know a lot about computers because he's very outdated, but he gets on the phone, calls Jerome, and come over. And I'll come on over, and we'll sit there and we'll work at the computer. Those are probably my favorite scenes.
Well, the character is not in the original novel, and the reason why she was added is a very good one. When you change from the page to the screen, the reader becomes a visual audience and sees a much more rich reality and a much more visceral reality. And I think they felt that if Hodges, the lead character, had no one in his life at all, that he would really be so abandoned by the world that it would be too dark and too tragic for what he had to then go through. So they have him have a neighbor who cares for him more than he really wants, except that in the long run he's glad she's there. I mean, she intrudes. She's a Budinsky. She says, "What are you eating? You're eating coconut cream pie for breakfast. This is ridiculous. Look at you. You're overweight. You live in a pigsty. You aren't taking care of yourself. You're just drinking. You fall asleep at night with a drink in your hand. You can't live like this." So he doesn't want to hear any of that, but he does want to have somebody care about him enough to say that. So they invented this woman who is his neighbor. And apparently Stephen King and David Kelly and Jack Bender are very happy with the result. She's a very valuable presence. And for me as an actress, what it means is everything I do is with Brendan Gleeson, who's one of the great actors of the world. So it's cherry pie.
My name is Lou Linklatter, and I work at a discount electronics store called Supreme Electronics. I work for a lot less money than I'm worth. And my boss lets me know that I'm not worth anything on a daily basis, as well as Brady Hartsfield. And Brady and I work together there, and he's my friend. And we're work buddies. And I mean, we're work buddies, and then maybe sometimes a little more than work buddies. But as you'll see, he doesn't have a lot of friends, Brady Hartsfield. And I care a lot for him. He seems like he's someone who's been beat down and someone who's vulnerable, and he lets our boss beat us down. You know, I don't know this, but I know his mother's an alcoholic. You know, everyone at work knows that. He's sort of humiliated on a regular. And so I stand up. Yeah, I mean, I think what we see throughout the series is Brady and I's reckoning with being marginalized by our work, everybody around us. My life is very different, though, than Brady's, and you sort of, as the series goes on, you sort of start to see little bits of that come through as to, like, maybe I have a more safer place to go home at night. Maybe I have a little better support system. Maybe I have a little, you know, I don't go home to despair in the way that Brady does.
First of all, my experience working with DirecTV has been great. The freedom and the support has been terrific. The how many people are going to come to the circus tent, and when is it going to be streamable?
Right.
And all of that, which will happen. But AT&T is trying to invent a new platform. And God bless them, I hope it works. They certainly feel our show, they're very proud of it. They've been doing this for now about 3 years, the Audience Network, and they really, you know, not to say anything about anything else they've done, because they've done some shows they're very proud of, but they really think this is great. And they're supporting it big time. So I hope, as my wife always says, well, how are we going to watch it? How are they going to watch it? And I go, stop right there. But that's it. Look, you want as many people to experience what you make as you can. And I hope it'll get enough attention that people will come to it, and then it will be out there in the big world, how everything gets out there. So that's my hope. First of all, the massacre, which is not the main thing in our show, but it does begin our show. I thought about it a lot. It's kind of like when I did Hodor, the death of that beloved character. I thought a lot and talked to Dan and David a lot about the thing I wanted most was the emotion. I didn't want to do a gothic horror movie. I didn't want to do The Walking Dead, as great as that is, because those dead could have had him at the door pulling flesh out of his body, and you could have done it that way, you know, pulling his face apart. But David and Dan said to me from the beginning, you know, and they wanted me very specifically to do that show, and they've been after me for a while, and it was a pleasure to finally be able to fit it in, do it. And I was very fortunate to get those episodes. But I wanted it to be about the loss of that person and the nobility of him freeing his friends and sacrificing himself to do that. So visually came up with just that, essentially that one shot on him and then the shot down on his younger self, and those brilliant performances those guys did, and eventually just play it in those. So as a director, visually, you really do think about how you're going to depict something that you read. And I felt like I wanted the massacre to, you know, when you look at the horrific events that happen around the world, like going back to Nice, and you see the cell phone footage of that car lumbering that big truck behind those trees, and you think, how could that have killed 80 people, or however many people died? How's that possible? And yet you know that if you were in there, it would look very different. So I decided I didn't want to sensationalize anything. I didn't want action music. I didn't want slow-mo. I wanted it to just feel as horrific as it would if you were there. And I think our team pulled it off, and some people see it and go, oh, Jesus, you know, did you have to do that? And like showing blood on TV, I think we are made of blood, and when people get shot, it's okay to show it without doing the genius ending of Taxi Driver that was operatic, you know? this is, so we tried to make it real and tell the story, which was my approach to the whole show, you know, and let these characters be out front in an honest way, as screwed up as they all are. So, but it was daunting, and a responsibility. And some people may think I went too far. Some people may think, you know, you can't control all that. But I hope that people feel the horror of that event that unfortunately happens more and more these days. And maybe one of these days, you know, but you only fear things will get worse, right? Given the world we're in. But that's a whole other discussion.